person who's been responsible for the budget for various mentoring and intervention programs, what we've seen is that I suppose I'd describe it as bang for buck. We have had the best outcomes per spend through our solution focused counselling compared to anything else that we've put funding towards.
Back in 2020, we interviewed Tara along with one of the pupils and a couple of the teachers to talk about how the introduction of solution focus in organizations, in counseling, etc., had been introduced into the school. I think I heard you, Tara, talk about it somewhere at a conference or something like that, and I was absolutely blown away that there was this amazing case study that we hadn't heard of. So it was great to hear about that. Here we are 5 years later. I can't believe it was 5 years ago that we interviewed you, and SF is still strong in Beechen Cliff School, and we understand is used in other schools in Bath as well. And that, from our point of view, is really interesting as well. That it's kind of spreading. You're infecting other parts of the world with SF. So what's happened since 2020? That's what we're going to discover with you. So the first question I'd really like to ask, and I'm going to ask Susie and Tara, but if anyone else was involved back then please feel free to join in. But could you give us a brief recap of the reasons for introducing SF into the school back in 2018, I think it was?
Yeah, so back then, I can't believe it either. We were really, I was the pastoral manager for the sixth form back in the day, and there was just a real worry in my head that there were lots of young people who were struggling, but they weren't coming forward and they weren't having any support, and we were trying to refer these young people to the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Team, which is where within the NHS for when there's wellbeing issues. And young people were just not getting seen. They weren't meeting the thresholds. The demand was just so huge. And I just felt that I needed to, in some way, try and figure out how I could get qualified in some way to be able to help those young people who weren't being seen. And that's when I met the wonderful Tara at conference and heard that she was piloting this approach in a few schools in the area, and asked the leadership team at Beechen whether they would consider letting me train in this approach because the students' needs weren't being met by the NHS. So then I got trained and started using the approach in school. And just a little backdrop to that, we really didn't have many boys coming forward to speak about their well-being at all. I think at that time, that year, when I got trained, 10 boys, just remember that number, out of a sixth form of 400. And they were all very, very not okay. So then, Tara, I forget how it all went, but managed to persuade with the head support that Tara also could join us and offer solution-focused counselling therapy in school. And I was just doing it as part of my day job. And now I no longer work at Beechen Cliff in that role, but I come in and do the solution-focused therapy for the sixth form, which is 400 students, and Tara does 5 whole year groups. There's approximately 180 to 200 students in each year group. So we are in school solution-focused practitioners. I think that's probably the best way to start explaining how that happened. But very importantly, if we hadn't had the support from the top down, this wouldn't have happened. So we are incredibly grateful.
Mm-hmm.
Want to add to that, Tara?
Yes, and I think what was really exciting was that as soon as we started delivering the one-to-one support, and that we had the support from senior leaders and across the school, that then we were able to, it happened really, really organically. You know, there was no plan. And it just, you know, in a very beautiful solution focused way, you know, it just had that kind of ripple effect. And then we were offering training to teachers, all within a very short space of time, us providing the one-to-one support and then offering, and it was very much an invitation. It was inviting school staff, all school staff, to attend solution focused training. And again, I think what was really wonderful and has been consistent over the 5 years is that so many members of staff across the community, and in the very beginning from the senior leadership team, and now attend the training. But it was an invitation, and lots of people came, and then it's just kind of grown from there, that we decided that it would be useful to train students. And I mean, it was around the kind of, I think it was around the pandemic time when we started to look at changing the wellbeing strategy, and that reflecting solution focused. We started to involve students as part of that strategy. Yeah, so it kind of just grew from being initially a sort of provision, a sort of a counselling provision, into being a whole school approach. And if anyone else wants to add to that.
Who else was around back in 2020?
Well, I could possibly just add a few things. I mean, I think the pandemic really contributed to sort of a further acceleration of SF work, because the PTA at the time crowdfunded to try and ensure we had the finance to grow the provision and the support available for students within the school. And that's something that we were very keen to maintain post-pandemic, and have been able to do so. But also, I guess from that point onwards, it was integrating into lots of different elements of school practice. So initially, we're looking at support for individual students and counselling, but then actually we mentioned training individual staff members and so on, but also looking into elements of reflective practice within behaviour management, also integrating it into elements of staff appraisal and so on as well. So it really has become part of a whole school approach to mental well-being from that sort of starting point that we had.
Okay, thank you for giving us that kind of background to it all. Could I just go round now, and just having got that introduction, is just to have you introduce yourselves. So Tara and Susie, I think you've already introduced yourselves as such, but Tim, let's start with you, as you just.
So yeah, I'm Tim Markle. I'm head teacher at Beechen Cliff School. At the time this was introduced, I was one of the assistant head teachers, but I've taken on a new role since then.
Okay, thank you. And coming up, Caden. Just tell us what year are you in? We're assuming you're pupils, but.
Jaden's in year 8, and I'm also in year 8.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. And just moving on to Marina, what's your role at?
Hi, yes, I'm one of the pastoral managers in sixth form. I'm picking up where Susie left off. I've worked with Tara for around 10 years over 2 different schools. So we worked together at a different school before coming to Beechen, coincidentally both at the same time. And obviously I've worked with Susie firstly when she was in her pastoral manager role here. So seeing the solution focus over 2 different schools and meeting the needs of some very complex characters, I'm quite convinced that if a lot of these boys didn't have access to this service, especially in my previous school, I don't think many of them would have actually got through their exams and they would have left school with nothing. And being able to have that person that they can have this one-to-one solution focused session with is amazing, because especially when teachers and staff may not have the capacity or the full understanding of their needs. So it's just been completely life-changing for many boys, in my opinion.
Thank you very much indeed, Marina. And Annabelle, on your own over there.
I'm Annabelle. I'm in year 12. I'm mental health prefect for this year. And I saw Susie for a few years ago. I started seeing her now. And then, I joined Beechen, saw her again a bit at the beginning of this year. So I know a lot about the solution focused approach. I've probably been with it for about 2 years now, maybe 3. So yeah.
Thank you. And Annabelle, and number 2.
Hi, I'm Annabelle Wilmot. I'm head of PSHE at Beechen. I've been here for 15 years and head of PSHE for 10. And I work alongside Polly, who obviously introduced herself in a minute, but we together organise the mental health provision for year 7 right through to year 13. And a lot of that includes sort of the FS focus when it comes to dealing with mental health.
Thank you. And Polly?
Yeah, so I'm Polly Netto. I have lots of different hats at Beechen Cliff, but sort of very early on we started working with Tara and Susie to look at incorporating SF into a whole school approach. So we were able to, because we're teachers, we were able to bring it into sort of the lessons and the tutor provision and sort of taking on different responsibilities within the strategy.
Thank you. And Henry?
Hi, I'm a year 10 student at this Beechen Cliff. And I saw Tara for like a term and a bit.
Okay, thank you. And Ella?
Also part of the wellbeing strategy team as well, Henry. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Ella?
My name's Ella Compton. I'm a teaching assistant who works primarily with year 8. I just came off of a degree of clinical psychology, and I started here in September. So solution focused is one of many sort of psychological theories I'm really interested in. And so I did some of the training that Tara facilitated for some of the staff members. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Mike?
I'm Mike Ambrose. I'm deputy head with pastoral responsibility. So been involved in both the sort of wellbeing agenda and strategy and the behaviour management side, which has been informed by SF practice.
Thank you very much. So just looking at how the school has moved on since 2020, what's the most significant difference someone walking into the school would notice now? So what would someone notice is different between the school's SF practice now compared to 5 years ago?
Who's going to answer that one?
Annabelle, this is Annabelle, the teacher.
Polly, yeah.
Yeah, I think the two of us could probably answer this one. I would say most vast majority of staff are now trained. It's used throughout the school rather than it just being obviously the counselling sessions that were offered to students that needed it. It's not about those students coming forward and saying, or being noticed by pastoral managers as someone that needs help. It's everywhere. So it's in all lessons across the school. The teachers aren't just PSHE teachers or pastoral teachers. You could be a teacher of any subject. The students are really aware of the language, I would say. So it might not be that you're talking to them about something personal. You might be talking to them about anything, but it's enabling them to use the kind of SF conversations and sort of starting points to be able to deal with all sorts of aspects of their life. I just think that it's everywhere. I feel like before it was it felt like it was for students and staff that were interested or needed it. and it doesn't feel like it's that anymore. It feels like it's just part of everything that we do across so many different areas, and the students are really aware of it and understand it and understand why we work in this way.
Yeah, I think it's a culture shift. I think we've managed to shift the culture to be more solution focused and more celebrating students' existing strengths and resources, and students noticing that about their peers and pointing out what their peers are good at and celebrating that, and supporting each other. Because I think the thing that we particularly wanted to use SF for was for students supporting students, staff supporting students, without having to be experts in mental health. And actually, we've managed to alleviate that pressure that staff were feeling, that they needed to have all this knowledge and experience to support somebody who was struggling. And actually, by using SF, we're noticing that we don't need to be experts, but we can still support and encourage and use SF in a really positive way. And I think it's worked for students, it's worked for staff on a personal as well as a professional level. So I think the culture, I would hope, is what you would notice. I think that's seeing the challenge myself is what I would say.
Okay, and asking someone else, this is just an extra question based on that. If that culture, what is it about the culture that people would notice?
I could probably say one thing that's really, really obvious to me, because I was trying to get to see those 10 boys and encourage other boys to come forward, all those years ago. And there was a definite stigma about being seen to go and speak to somebody in the pastoral office. There was no way they were going in that room. And now we have back-to-back appointments, and there is nobody bothered about coming to the room, walking in, seeing another person, off they go, recommending to their friends, why don't you go and see Tara? Why don't you go and see Susie? It's just okay to go and have an SF session. And that used to be a real problem for especially the boys, but not anymore. That's really not. They just know that, I have the younger ones come in to see me sometimes looking for Tara. Is Tara in today? Wrong office. Go down to the pastoral office, you'll find her, and I'm sure you have the same. And it's just like, no one minds. Everyone knows what's going on in that room, and everyone's happy to be seen, going to have some support, which is amazing.
So Caden and Rafferty and Henry and Annabelle, from your point of view, what would you say to us that people would notice about the culture, the SF use in Beechen Cliff?
Yeah, sure. It's not like long. It's not like too time consuming.
Okay.
It's easy to like talk.
Sorry, could I just ask you a little bit just to speak up, because the microphone's not picking you up so well from back there.
Like talk, and it's not that time consuming. It's like 30 minutes, something like that.
So it's easy to talk.
Yeah. We do short sessions, don't we, Caden? But Caden and Rafferty, when we were meeting earlier, I asked you a question about, when do you notice that solution focused is being used in school? And do you remember me asking you that earlier? And at first you were like, oh, I'm not really sure. And then I said to you, do the teachers talk about what's going well, what's working? And do you remember? And what was your response to when I asked you that question earlier?
Not much.
Yeah, I think it's like they're not focusing on the bad things. They're focusing on the good things you're doing.
Yes.
Yeah,
you were saying that it's that there's teachers that are focusing on the good stuff that you're doing rather than the bad stuff that you're doing. Yeah,
very much.
Thank you. And I'll come to Annabelle now, and then I'll come to Henry. But Annabelle, what would you say?
I would just say I was quite impressed about how comfortable people are going forward and speaking to those people. That's why I think, well, from what I've seen in the 6th especially, Beechen has made it so that like it's a normal thing which people need. I remember at the beginning of the year we had the testimony assembly where Beechen talk about what like mental health programs they put in place, and it's like even if you just needed a one-off session, you can absolutely contact. Like it doesn't have to be this big thing, which is like, well, this is the person you're going to be seeing for the next 3 months. It's like, well, even if you just need a one-off, just check in, see how you're doing. And I think that's what has kind of broken down this stigma a little bit. Like it doesn't have to be this massive, overwhelming thing that's happening. You can just go for a little mental check-in, do it every so often. And I think that's why people are a lot more comfortable approaching and comfortable having other people know, because it's not you're going here because you're really, really struggling. It's like, well, you can go there for that, but also if you just need a few sessions, that's absolutely fine as well.
Wonderful, thank you. And Henry?
Yeah, I come from another school at the start of this year, and I'm quite into rugby and I'm quite boisterous. In my friendship group, there's quite a few of us who see Tara or have seen Tara, so it's quite accepted. And people, if they know, they'll start asking questions. Everyone speaks to each other about it. It's a lot more open-minded than some other boys groups and boys schools or whatever in different places.
That's really interesting that you've come in this year to and so you can really see the difference. What would be the biggest difference that you notice from your other school?
Probably the main one is just everyone, not everyone, but most people just sort of like are aware, and it's not like a stigma of, oh yeah, you've got mental health problems, you're a man, you shouldn't. Everyone's sort of like asking questions, making sure their mate's all right and stuff, which is really quite good.
Thank you.
Can I just add a little bit, John, to it's just something, and I was talking to Caden and Rafferty about this, something that we've introduced recently is group work as well, which has been a really kind of wonderful addition. And, you know, maybe we can talk a little bit about that later. But I think building on what Polly and Annabelle were saying as well, and the students are saying, I love what Henry just said, is those, I think, what I've learned from the school and what I've learned from teachers is about how to adapt the training so that it's really, really accessible for them, and that what they can take from it that's useful. And the very beginning, they were sort of like, when am I going to have a conversation? When am I going to have the opportunity to have a conversation like you do? And learning from the school community, learning from the students, from the teaching staff, from the whole staff, is those tiny, tiny interactions, those moments, those tiny moments when they can use solution focused, the corridor conversations as we've named them. And that sort of evolution of the approach in the school has been really powerful and really meaningful for me as a practitioner.
Thank you. So if I can just move slightly, apart from that challenge that you just talked about, really is about the teachers needing, to know more about when am I going to be able to do conversations, and then realizing actually you can do conversations pretty much as soon as you've learned SF. Is what other challenges have come over the years? And let me ask Mr. Ambrose or Mr. Markle, what challenges have you seen that you've managed to overcome in the last 5 years?
I suppose I've only been here for 3 years. I think in my time here, in terms of challenges, it has been around trying to weave SF throughout the fabric of the entire school and to have that in a meaningful way, rather than there's various ways of sort of managing difficulties, and typically SF comes up when everything's not going smoothly or not going to plan, but to try and weave it in, as I think has already been mentioned, through positive recognition and noticing what's going well and what's working, or where in the classroom a student might be struggling with their work and thinking about how have they tackled problems like this before and how have they found ways to be successful before, and relating. One of the things we do with our sort of behaviour management is we ask staff to talk to students when things have gone wrong about when it's gone right for them and what was different and how might they apply that. And that's kind of that application of SF throughout the the fabric of the school. But of course, that's a constant challenge because we've got competing agendas and constantly changing staffing, and the pressures of everyday school life. And I think all of those sort of compete with the ability to have the time and space and the headspace as well to be thoughtful enough to be using these approaches. So I suppose that's a constant, I was going to say a constant struggle, but actually it's just something that you need to be always mindful of to remain at the forefront of thought and practice. And when we change or evolve our practice and staff training to have, how can SF fit in with this and where does it fit? And I've got to say, both Tara and Susie have been great when we've been looking at changes to be able to suggest ways that SF thinking can actually fit with what we're trying to achieve as a school.
So someone else, Marina, Annabelle and Polly, would you like to jump in as well? What's challenges from your perspective that you've had and you've managed to overcome? So thank you for that, Mike.
I would say just quickly that I think when we first put it out to staff to train staff and offered it to them, some staff showed initially a little bit of resistance, and I think that they thought that we were asking them all to become counsellors, but and there was a few of them didn't do like the first couple of trainings, like years that we did it, because they were like, oh, I don't know how I would use it, or I don't think that I'm the right person for somebody to talk to. But actually they kind of then realized that they could just use it in their everyday teaching or as a tutor or regardless of what they were doing. But it took a little while for people to understand that. So I think, but then once they did, everyone sort of it felt like they got more on board. But I do think that there was probably a lack of understanding because it was something new that we were bringing into the school. And I think it probably people that were that had more of a pastoral role in the school were more initially interested. But within, I would have said 2 years, I think that completely changed. And then it was just very much felt that it was for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things we've been trying to do to help support that is develop resources for staff. And Tara and I have been calling it a toolkit recently. And so sort of conversation starters or prompt cards or visual posters around school to remind staff that actually you can have corridor conversations. You can use SF when there's a class of 30 and it's all chaotic. You can still use the language and use those techniques. So I think that the staff buy-in and the staff turnover, as we've already said. The other thing I think sometimes that can be a challenge is that, we're, as staff members, we're human too. We're coming to work with our own things going on in our own, in our own lives. And I think some people, as Annabelle was saying, didn't really understand that this wasn't something that would sort of be triggering or difficult for them. And actually, if they gave it a chance, actually, it could be something that's a really positive, helpful approach for them in their own interactions with their family and friends. I mean, I've certainly benefited from the SF approach on a personal level, which then helps me on a professional level. So I think that there's that sort of reticence sometimes, but actually Tara and Susie do a great job of explaining it when we do staff training, and that puts people at ease. And then if we're providing those prompts and the toolkits, that's then a way of combating those challenges.
Thank you. Marina, what about you?
Yeah, one of the things that has really improved at Beechen Cliff is something that Susie has touched on when she said about the stigma around boys and men getting help with their mental health and well-being. And it was really nice to hear Henry say that it's just the norm, because as Henry mentioned, he's a rugby player, and we have a lot of rugby boys here at Beechen Cliff and football players. And when they get injured, their outlet is gone. And this is where solution focus really, really steps in and helps them. And they really need somebody to speak to and somebody to help them manage their emotions and understand, how to manage themselves when they don't have that outlet anymore, because that's what's been helping them with their mental health a lot of the time. and SF basically can step in and fill that gap for them. And I think that has just been invaluable to Beechen Cliff.
Thank you. And Annabelle, the pupil, Annabelle, what about you? What challenges have you seen in the last 2 years? You said you've been doing it, but you've been at the school longer than that as well.
Well, I've only been at the school for about like 7 months now. So
Oh, right. Sorry, forgive me. I thought you said 2 years. Right.
No. I've seen Susie privately. So that's how I know about the solution-focused approach for longer. But yeah, I couldn't really say challenges at Beechen because I haven't been able to see a lot of them.
Okay.
Well, Annabelle, just, we were talking recently because you're part of the wellbeing strategy, and we have possibly a little bit, we had sort of reduced student involvement from when it was much more kind of in the first few years, and so we kind of take full responsibility for not involving students as much as we were, but we brought back a group of students across the school, and Henry is part of that, and Annabelle. And you were saying something that you were hoping for from us was that we would provide more training. So we'd provided one lot of training, and you were hoping that in order for you as students to be able to utilise it, make the most of it, that you hoped for more training. I don't know whether you want to speak to that a little bit more, Annabelle.
No, just like I've said before, when we did have that beginning session, I think in like November time, I was like, oh, this is going to be really cool. Like, I can't wait to like finish the training. So then, like you said, we can utilize it. Because I was saying in relation to, I help out with one of my teachers' tutor groups, so a year 7 tutor group. So I'm already like developing a relationship with some of the like lower school students, and I feel like they say hi to me like around school and stuff, and it's like I feel like if I had this like training, whatever, like it's a way of like kind of joining the sixth form with the lower school a bit more, so that you are approachable, and if it's too scary or too like intimidating to go to a teacher, like you can go to a sixth form student, and so yeah, it's kind of that.
Okay, thank you. And Tara, you mentioned about you pulled back, because I remember in the first interview there was quite a lot about the pupils using it and being taught how to use SF. And it sounds as if you pulled back from that a little bit. Was there a reason for that?
No, I mean, it's as teacher Annabelle said, that it has been across the school, and it's in tutor time, and it is in everyday sort of aspects of the school. I think during, as Tim made reference to, during the pandemic, we had so much time to work around the strategy, and we had working groups, and they were all kind of, on Zoom like this, because people were coming in from home into the Zoom meeting, and a lot of students were involved in those initial years. And we have continued to train the sixth form students, but we haven't necessarily reviewed the wellbeing strategy. So Polly and myself have, and with the help of a working group of students, are reviewing the wellbeing strategy. So it's been a little while since we've reviewed that, and now it's got an absolutely amazing student body that are representative from each year group, which is just wonderful. And the things that they were talking about in relation to what's going well and what they hope to be different, has really helped us shape the new strategy, which is Polly today has been working on that to kind of look at the actions and next small steps, and so that's a really exciting thing to be a part of with the students.
Thank you. One thing is that one group of, if I can call them stakeholders, I hate the word, but is parents. I haven't heard the word parent, I think, mentioned once here, and I know, Tara, you were a parent, or you may still be a parent, I'm not sure, of someone at the school. But anybody else have experience with the parents and how they felt? Annabelle and Polly, for example?
So we haven't mentioned parents yet, but we actually have done quite a lot with parents over the years. Susie and Tara do a newsletter entry, which is an SF entry for parents on a regular basis, and we organise some parent training. So we've done coffee mornings on a Saturday, and our lead Senko SRT member of staff, Joe, has worked with Tara to lead some SF training, particularly around neurodivergent students and how parents can work with their children using SF in a really positive way. So there is a lot going on with parents, and I think it's really important that when we're looking at a school community, that's the key word, isn't it? It's community. So this strategy that we're in the process of reviewing, because it did need a review, is looking at staff, parents and students, and actually all of those members of the community need to be represented. From my perspective, I haven't had lots of interaction with the parents, but what I've heard and seen has been really positive. Tara might be able to tell you a bit more about how those training sessions have gone, but that's certainly a big part of the strategy moving forward, is continuing and keep. I think the key thing is consistency. This has sort of been a common theme, I think, in this conversation, that actually we brought in this strategy, which we thought was really helpful, but actually it's this constant refreshing and reviewing and being consistent with what we're doing that's important. So in terms of parents, I think there's some things to continue and maybe some opportunity to increase our work with parents.
Thank you. And I think Tim mentioned that the PTA actually helped fund back in COVID times, helped fund the initiative with SF. And I guess they would like to know, from their point of view, is there any quantitative or qualitative data that you keep? Do you measure anything to do with this, to show people, hey, this is the difference? And appreciate the number of boys coming to see counsellors, etc., has shot up. But any other measures?
Susie and Tara keep a log of obviously all the students that they support, and every year they provide me with summary data on the number of students who've had that. But also one of the most powerful measurements really is actually the feedback that we get. So they ask students for feedback on the process. And I think that feedback, although it's not quantitative, actually when you're reading through those particular statements, that's evidence of impact as far as I'm concerned.
And actually, this is actually going to be sent to Mr. Markle, but haven't quite got there yet. But I've got the figures. So remember that magic 10 from sixth form that I mentioned all those years ago, 10 boys that came forward to have some support. Well, I can tell you that last year, across the school, Tara and myself delivered support to 149 students. And up to date right now, we haven't finished, we're at 144. And a very important statistic is that with us intervening early, with Tara looking after the younger ones, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, the last 2 years, and I can't believe it, it's exactly the same percentage as last year, 66% of the sixth form students that come to see me came from other schools. And that statistic suggests that the good work that's happening in the lower school means that the number of internal Beechen boys when they come to the sixth form has reduced and reduced and reduced. And that these new students that join the sixth form haven't maybe had this SF provision in their schools, if I'm making sense. And just to say, I think, Tara, we can't believe this, but between us, we delivered 1,035 counselling sessions. And that's not including all the group work that we have, social workers who you train, who come in to help. So the data, is interesting. But yeah, 144, that must be, I don't know how many students are in the school. Does anyone? Whatever percentage that is, and I can't do the maths. That's a lot.
Name for the maths. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, wow.
I was just going to add one thing about this one particular year group. The year group that really struggled the most with COVID, who didn't finish primary school and didn't go into their secondary school in the normal way. That year group followed through, has had the largest number of boys wanting support. A very much larger percentage of that year group. I mean, I'm just looking here. 31 students in year 11 saw Tara, compared to your average of about 9, 13, 15 across the years. So, you know, that year group has really benefited because that's a national picture, actually. Sorry, Tara.
No, sorry. Thank you for sharing all of that, and thank you for being able to do that, because you know that that's just not my. Strengths don't lie in that area, and Susie's done.
You and me both, Tara.
But because I was, I hope it's okay to just pick up on what Tim was saying about feedback, and I was talking to Caden and Rafferty earlier, and Caden and Rafferty, you know, very kindly have been open, and Henry, about sharing that they've received solution focused support. But Rafferty, you were sharing, and Caden, and I think you wrote some things down that you were up for sharing today around your feedback about. Rafferty, you've been part of the group work, haven't you? And yes, and yeah, what did you want to share with us today?
Right, so before I get on to the group work, I just want to say, in general, solution-based therapy is like, it's not really fast and aggressive, so it's not like feeling like you have to do this at their pace. You can take it at your own time. It can also be like calm, and like when you do the sessions, they can sometimes be fun. They can be fun as well. And like they just give you a lot of support as well. So like if you're like struggling with mental health, they can help you a lot. And if you're struggling with like, maybe say you're in year 11 and you've got like your GCSEs coming up, they could like help you study or like help you find help with that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Solution focus is easy to talk and is quick, so it's not too long, and it helps you achieve a goal. It could be any type of goal, anything.
Yeah.
And it helps you focus.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So thank you for that. Have there been any unanticipated outcomes of introducing SF? Anything that surprised you? Someone else? Annabelle, you've been around a long time as a teacher, and Polly, and Marina.
I feel like I'm going to repeat it a little bit, but I think that it's made the school and how we deal with incidences much more positive. And I don't know if we would have necessarily have thought that. I think that when we first started introducing it, it was very much, well, it was obviously much more on an individual base rather than a whole school. And I think that we thought that it would help when there was like larger problems maybe. But actually it's ended up with teachers, like the boy said earlier, picking up on strengths and being much more positive. And so it felt like when you're dealing with something which you deal with, you know, daily sometimes as a teacher, things that can be a challenge for the teacher themselves or for a student, being able to deal with them in a way that feels like you're focusing on the positives more, which I don't think that we thought that was necessarily going to be the case. So it's felt that people have, I don't know, got a strength in them that they didn't know that they had, which has been lovely to see. And they're not experts, you know, we're not all experts. Tara and Susie are experts, but it's allowed people to feel that they're able to deal with situations in a really positive way that has made a big difference to the kids, that I didn't think that we necessarily knew that would happen to the scale that it has done.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've been pleased to notice is how staff, when they've had their training, use it for themselves and their well-being. Education can be a chaotic and a stressful environment to be in, but actually us being encouraged to take time in our team meetings and faculty meetings and house meetings to stop and notice what's going well and to spend some time focusing on that, the impact of that. I didn't necessarily, I thought we were sort of using SF for the students, but actually noticing that it's helping staff to stop and reflect on their strengths and resources has been really, really positive and not necessarily something I thought would happen.
Thank you. Someone else, one of the teachers?
Ella, I'd love to hear from Ella as like one quite new to SF this year. Be great to hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, I would just be sort of almost repeating exactly what Polly just said. I mean, I distinctly remember the first training session we did, and we did the exercises that we would sort of be completing with the boys. And I just remember turning to another teacher and saying, I don't even remember what went wrong today, because I've just focused on the positive things and just realised, oh, I actually can do this quite well, and I'm fitting in, and I'm, joining a new job. You sort of are stressed about, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing it in the right way as well? And am I doing what's best for these boys? And it almost immediately sort of reframed how I was looking at each day and how I was looking at each lesson, and also about each boy as well, and noticing what they've done and what we've done together. It really is so interlinked about how we view the boys' mental health and how we view our own, because if our own isn't up to par, then we can't facilitate them or support them as we need to do. So it was really almost instant seeing how that frame of mind really changed how I worked, even just within a few weeks, really. So that was really interesting.
Wow. So Mike, you came in 3 years ago. What unexpected outcomes for you?
I don't know about unexpected, but it's been very enjoyable to watch the sort of infusing of that softening and breaking down of barriers. I think that have already been discussed. I'm not sure I've got anything that I would say was I've been sitting and listening and thinking, I don't think I had any unexpected outcomes that I would necessarily comment on, but something that I wanted to comment on that doesn't answer that question, but I did feel is that the involvement of the whole school community through the newsletters, which are going home weekly. I think it's a significant change in culture, and in my team we deal with communication with parents a lot, and for parents to have that awareness of that approach that we're using, and that's a sort of real element of our school, comes through in some of those conversations that we have with parents, and helps them to understand where we're coming from as a school. I think maybe that is an unintended outcome, but I've talked my way around into thinking maybe that is an answer.
Thank you very much. So would anyone else like to say anything, if they can think of anything new that hasn't come up yet? Okay, we've had a lot of unexpected outcomes, so that's good to see. So imagine it's 2028 and solution focused practice in Beechen Cliff is even stronger and more deeply embedded than it is now. What do you notice happening differently? What ideas have you got for changing going forward?
Just because I've been writing the action plan today, one of my best hopes would be that every tutor session or every lesson starts and finishes with a sort of an SF reflection. What are our best hopes for the next hour that we're together? What would we like to see if this lesson was going to be a 9 or a 10? What would that look like in the next 45 minutes to an hour? And then at the end of the lesson or the tutor time, what were we pleased to notice about ourselves in the last hour? That's something that We do in some lessons. I know that that's going on in pockets, and sort of in certain lessons, particularly PSHE lessons, we do a lot of that reflection and tutor time. But that would be one of my best hopes, is that the language is so embedded that actually it's a part of our practice every single lesson.
Thank you. Others?
I think mine would be, just building on all of the good stuff that's happening already, and just more of that, the tiny, tiny interactions, the everyday, just hearing more of it as you're walking down the corridor.
And from a pupil point of view, what would you like to see in 2028 or whenever it is? What would you like to see change as a result of solution focus? Annabelle, you look like you were going to speak there. Sorry.
Well, no, I don't exactly have a good answer, but I think what Miss Neto was saying, just like it just becoming part of like the practice. So even like in assessment, like feedback, for example, like highlighting the areas that went wrong, but it's like also, okay, but what actually did go well? I think I've just found that really helpful for me, like applying that over the last few years, and just, of course, making that more wide.
Thank you.
And also we've said it earlier, but really would be so wonderful to have more students trained, more visibility of the older ones out with the younger ones, like Annabelle said, in the tutor time, but also in the refectory where they have their lunch. If we've got these prefects going around doing duties wearing these little high-vis jackets, then we want them to be having those lovely little solution-focused conversations, once trained, obviously, peer-to-peer support, that sort of area as well. And hearing that chatter going on in the corridor would be amazing. But that would be my hope.
So, just as an outsider listening to this, and I know I interviewed back in 2020, but you have a fabulous story, and I'm just really curious about external people. Are you getting, dare I say the words Ofsted, but inspectors come into schools. I'm assuming in the last 5 years you've had an inspection. What have they noticed that's different about Beechen Cliff to other schools that they go to? Tim,
one of the things that is referred to in both, we actually had 2 Ofsted inspections in 2023, one for the main school and one for our boarding provision, because we have a boarding house as well. So we had a social care inspection for boarding, which is separate to the main school inspection. Both commented on the strengths of mental health support. In fact, that's referred to in the last 2 boarding inspections. If you go back to 2020, the inspection refers to the strength of mental health support there, and it's referenced in both the more recent reports from 2023 as well.
Thank you. And do you get other head teachers come in to say what's different about your school? I'm curious about that.
Well, I think the school is part of a trust, and you've already mentioned that SF is now used in some other schools in the local area as well, and some of those are part of the same trust, and certainly some of the work that Tara's done in particular has been branching out into other schools. I think Tara will be able to clarify how many schools within the trust she works in at the moment. Is it 3, Tara?
I think in total 5 or 6.
5 now. 5. There you go. Ever increasing.
Ever increasing, yeah. And actually, I won't name the school, but I got contacted by a school that's not in the trust, but it's in the area this week. Said, I've heard about the solution focused, the provision that's happening at Beechen. Tell me more. So yes, it's.
It's something that we're really proud of. The fact that we are part of this journey and the provision that we've got, we want to continue to grow it, and I'm really grateful for the expertise and the efforts of everybody on this call, because I do think it's so important. It's why, from a leadership perspective, we continue to invest as a school, so we can continue on the journey. But certainly, when it's we're part of. I meet with other head teachers across the city. We have meetings 2 or 3 times a year and look at what we can learn from each other. And I'm always quite vocal about the things that we do well, but also trying to learn from others as well. I think that's important to do, full stop. And so when we're talking about things like issues around attendance and anxiety and the things that are leading to attendance issues across schools and how different schools are tackling it, well, one of the things I've referred to is the approaches that we have used. And obviously what you've heard this afternoon very much links into that, because breaking down those barriers to attendance often is removing barriers to anxiety. And often that's around how you can solve those problems, isn't it? Which fits perfectly with the SF approach.
So have you seen an improvement in attendance in Beechen Cliff?
Our attendance has gone up over the last few years. I mean, all schools have suffered since the pandemic. Attendance nationally is an issue in this country. It's a big focus of the government at the moment. Our attendance has gone up for the last 3 years, and we're currently the strongest in the local area. So, I mean, that I guess is a positive indication of the impact. It's still not quite back to pre-pandemic levels, and therefore it's still an area of focus for us as a school. But the evidence is in the data that we've got.
Wonderful. Okay, so just throwing it in is what advice would you give to people watching or listening to this conversation who are unsure about using SF in a school or other organisation? And if anyone would like to jump in on to answer that, what advice would you give?
Could I jump in?
Yeah, please, Mike. Yeah.
As the person who's been responsible for the budget for various mentoring and intervention programs, what we've seen is that I suppose I'd describe it as bang for buck. We have had the best outcomes per spend through our solution-focused counselling compared to anything else that we've put funding towards, and that has been comfortably clear of various other counselling provisions, listening services, mentoring provisions, etc. So I suppose I would say you will get the best outcome for the spend in terms of financial and time spend compared to any other provision we've tried.
Wow. Wow.
I think we alluded to it earlier, but actually the weight that's lifted off your shoulders, feeling like you desperately want to help students, but you're not an expert in mental health and worrying about the right or the wrong thing to say, all of that's alleviated with SF, because actually it's such a positive framework and such a positive approach, and actually with very minimal training you can make an enormous difference in a way that means you are not carrying anything or worried about what you're doing with that student and what you're saying to that student. So I think we all want to support students' mental health and well-being, and my advice would be to try SF because it's quick, it's easy, it's doable in 30-minute conversations, 30-second conversations, and anyone can do it.
Wow.
I would also jump off of that and say, not only for staff, but for the boys as well. I mean, some of the more complicated psychological interventions, you have to have a background or have to spend time actually learning how to implement it. I mean, things like CBT, there's lists of tasks that you're given, and can be really difficult to incorporate into an already stressful time of growing up and going through school. And so solution focused is something that they can implement really easily into their lives. It's not an added stress, it sort of just goes along with what they're already doing.
Wonderful.
And following on from that, in sixth form, we do have a lot of students that have already been through the NHS route of CAMS and having CBT, like Ella's mentioned, and other NHS counselling services, and they still feel lost. And then having solution focus sessions in school, a lot of them have felt that has been actually what has worked for them. So it's evident that solution focus works. It is effective, and it's just amazing that we're able to offer them anything, but to be able to offer them something that we know that actually works like Mike said about the money that is spent on it, it's worth every penny. And it's amazing that we're able to provide them with a solution.
Thank you. All right. So just let me ask one of the pupils. What advice would you give to people thinking about putting SF into their schools?
What advice?
This is a hard question, to be fair.
Well, it's quite
A good program.
yeah.
It's quite easy and simple to
Yeah,
use.
and it helps a lot of people, like in general.
Okay.
Generally.
Annabelle, did you want to?
Yeah, I was thinking like just go for it, because it doesn't feel like you're throwing yourself in the deep end, because it's simply just seeing what you already have and then just building on that to try and make yourself like better and like build yourself back up if you're coming from like a low place. Like you're like, it's almost just like dipping your toe in the shallow end of the pool, because you're just talking yourself through it in solution focused approach, for me at least. And so yeah, it doesn't feel like this really big daunting thing. So I think that's one thing which should be recognized, because it would encourage more people to get involved if they realize it's not scary.
And what a lovely point to end on. So I appreciate the amount of time we've taken in your busy day, and that you stayed on afterwards to help us with this call. So first of all, huge thanks to you for that. We really appreciate it. I'd just like to say, Tara knows how much I admire the work that's been done at Beechen Cliff, and why I've asked if we could come back and talk to you again. And so I just want to say congratulations, really. Amazing case study that we'll be thrilled to put into interaction, and a huge well done to all of you. It's just a great story to hear.